Hey guys, this is V21 for the how to design build a 59 Korina Les Paul replica using Stuart McDonald templates. And this video is going to pick up from video 18, and I'm just going to try to dive right in and cover what I need to cover, because I'm about to do a lot of work to this guitar, and I don't want to just go from video 18 to video 21 and there be a drastic transition, because video 20 and video 21 is primarily covering the Honduran 59 replica that I built and sold that has the maple cap, which I won't talk about that guitar at all in this video, other than it shipped and everything went really well and the guy was happy with it, and seems to be all good news. So getting back on point with this guitar, I knew that I still wanted to do a little bit more contour work to make certain that I really picked up the whole kind of what I saw in the Peter Green video, or not Peter Green himself, but there's this man in London that is apparently the custodian, or was the custodian of that guitar. Man, that video is incredible as far as showing what happens when that guitar passes through certain light, and you see the actual 50s carving. And as I mentioned in video 20 or 21, man, there were moments where the guitar would be turned in the light, and I could literally see exactly what part of the scraper they used to achieve that contour. Now, unless you've built a lot of arch-top guitars, I don't think you would be able to visually see that and then transfer it over to this actual scraper and pull it off well. I'm going to try to stay on point here and just talk about the importance of these carving templates from Stuart McDonald, because the beauty of this guitar right here, most of this I just carved by hand and by feel and by what I wanted to see, and then it was pretty much incredible to pick up these templates and see how close I got to it just on the front end. I used them a little bit for just a little bit of general reference, because when you're looking at this footprint, this is a 59 Les Paul replica, but it's pretty much spot on as far as dimensions go and compound radius, everything. Okay, it's pretty much what you see is pretty much exactly what it is. So, but when you're getting ready to start spraying a gold top finish or a black top finish, or let's say it was a maple cap with beautiful figure to it, once you pull the trigger on your finish gun, meaning when I say finish, I mean like the nitrocellulose lacquer, you really need to have your contours 100% finished. You need to have the guitar completely finished, and that's just common sense. But I'm bad about, especially this being a paint grade guitar, it really didn't matter. I could have sprayed it black and then said, and then turned it in the light a little bit and realized that, I want to come in here and start doing some more scraping. But why do that when you can do it prior to that? And also because I'm limited on the amount of gold that I have, I'm going to spray this as a gold top, and it might be too much gold, but we'll cross that bridge later on, because this being basically a blonde guitar, it would kind of be cool if it were a black top, but I like the idea from a valuation standpoint. I think it would be far more valuable as just a gold top guitar, and this one I may actually distress a little bit to kind of age it, because I want this Honduran mahogany to come through. And I might talk about that stuff a little bit, but primarily what I want to do in this video is actually put my money where my mouth is and actually do a little bit of shaping on camera. And well, let me back up. but I am going to do some work in this video. What you should be able to feel it, okay, by keeping this, off the table. You're obviously, I'm using my fingers like a caliper, or my hands like a caliper. My thumb to my fingers is a caliper, and I'm just going around the body. Let me see if that's in the camera. Yeah, it should be. I'm going around the body, and I'm just really taking. I call it like mental mapping. I'm mentally mapping the guitar, and I have actually done this on this one so much. I know it's almost exactly where I want it, but I wanted to do a little bit more pinching right here. Maybe not right here, but definitely over here. There's a little bit of mass right here that could come out, but it's not really necessary. But I got to be careful over here because because I carried that scoop up in this recurve, because I carried this recurve up into this area right here. I've already kind of defined that. So what I want to do now is take a feel of everything over there and then transfer it over to this side. And this is kind of typical because I got myself in trouble once, whatever guitar it was. I did way too much scooping right here, and it just had this gully in it. And fortunately, it was a paint grade, but it worked me to death because I was having to fill that in with epoxy and leveled up. So I learned my lesson to keep this right here pretty full figured. Okay, you want to keep that pretty there's a lot of mass right there. Be real careful about carving that off too much because you'll get yourself in trouble. But and on that note, if you're not careful, if you pinch too much, then you'll have the gully back here. But I'm gonna take a chance on it, and I'm gonna show you exactly what I'm going for and where I'm using the scraper. I'm typically working in this area right here, and just gonna get a feel for it. And I'm not gonna talk because I just wanna. So I'm working in that area right there, but I'm making certain that I don't get up here at all. I'm just creating a little bit of a cut right here. Okay, what I'm doing here, this is where I'm really kind of defining the pinch. And be careful, you don't want to cut too much of that out right there because you'll have this goofy scoop. It'll look like a molding. You don't want that. You want a real beautiful transition. And if you don't know what you're doing, pick up your Stuart McDonald template number D, and that's the belly. Okay, so that'll walk you right through. And if anything, you won't be able to see it. Let me see if I can get this in the camera, and I'll do the best I can to keep it real still. You're going to see that my D location, which is the center between the two pickups, I'm pinching just a little bit more than the Stuart McDonald templates, but not much. I mean, I'm looking at that. I see I'm about 32nd of an inch deeper right there, and just right there. Not the whole thing, just right here. Okay. And I'm probably at a point to where it wouldn't be wise to scrape much more. Let me turn this in. Let me just look at it. Yeah, I can see it. It's really, and also just this right here. Just if you just do this right here, I can still feel a little bit of mass right here. And what I might recommend at this point, an eraser with 220. Be careful though, because you'll lose. The last thing you want to do is round off that area right there. You just want to blend the area that you cut. See, I'm actually turning this eraser up, and I'm writing off that corner right there, doing the final cut work. But then eventually, what I'm going to do, I'm gonna lay this eraser over a little bit, and I'm going to blend them. So probably what I'll do, I'll cut, and then I'll start laying it down, and then I'll start blending a little bit like that right there. And the pencil eraser they're just incredible for making a really beautiful transition, and then you can even use them to do flat work as well. So let's do just that. Let's blend this together. I'm cutting, but not much. You don't want to cut for too long, because that sandpaper will definitely change the profile. Don't use anything, do not use anything more aggressive than a 220, but it needs to be a relatively fresh 220. I've never done that, but I just stood the eraser up like that. I want to try that. I'm kind of blending the cut into the belly, but notice how I'm not coming up here. I don't want to lose the belly. I'm just defining the pinch. Okay, now at this point, get rid of the pencil eraser. It feels really good. And this is where you want to, should be in the camera. And I'm doing the best I can to keep it in the camera, but also not screw up the guitar. You can feel the body through the sandpaper. Oh yeah, I can feel it. It's going to be a beautiful pinch. That's going to be awesome. And when you achieve it, stop. Don't massage it. Leave it alone. Get away from it. Yeah. Oh wow, that's amazing. It feels incredible. And what's amazing, just by taking a little bit of additional material out, it really defined that 50s pinch. Feels really good. And this is one of those things we could talk about. I could talk about it all night long, but until you just get the body in your hand and start feeling the guitar, will you be able to pull it off? And then at that point, all you're doing is just blending it. And let's see if we can get this captured in the light. Probably won't capture because it's flat, but once it has the clear coat on it, or either the gold top, you'll see it. And also, I'm looking at it straight. I'll try to put that in the camera as to what I'm seeing. I'm looking at it straight on, and I'm just still doing that mental mapping. This is finished up here. That's beautiful. That's the guitar I want. Okay. And I was able to get a little bit more of that waist out. When I say like the waist, it was just a little bit too fat right there. And I'm going to be real careful here, but I'm going to take off just a little bit more, but not much. I don't want to lose that pin. It's amazing how quickly you'll lose your work. Like if you come up here and start sanding that and trying to round it in, you'll wash out. Because again, with our template, we've already defined that the belly is really nice. I don't know if that's going to pick up on the camera, but from this point to that point, it's basically identical to the Stuart McDonald carving template, but I am a little bit more flat right here. As I mentioned in video 20 and 21, I was surprised to see that how flat it is. Now that's a perfectly flat pickup ring, and I will shape it a little bit, but if you notice, it's not flat, but it's certainly not very round as well. Okay, now the thinner one up here, it will bend just a little bit, but I will shape it out just a little bit to better fit the body. But I guess what I'm trying to say is don't get too bubbly, or don't get bubbly at all, quite frankly. And if anything, it's better for this to be kind of flat. It's that way because the more flat it is right here, when you come off of that top, you'll be able to create a really well-defined pinch. But don't overdo it. All right, let me check the time. Is that 15 minutes? Okay, what else do we want to talk about? All right, let me just keep building the guitar. Basically, as I mentioned, you're getting ready to start shooting your finished coats, and you just want to make certain that once you start shooting those coats of lacquer, that you're not having to scrape lacquer off, do sanding, introducing dust in the air when you've got your spray booth set up over to the other side of the shop, and you're trying to keep a real controlled, clean environment, and you don't want this crap right here in the air is what I'm saying. So, but obviously, if you start spraying and you realize that it's a little flat, or it's a little left, it's a little right. Um, it's best to turn off the spray equipment and get the guitar body under control. And this one is pretty much exactly where I want it. So now what's the next thing? Let's just talk about these templates a little bit and how they actually are meant to be used. Because you have to keep in mind, and please don't think I'm bragging or anything, but I've built so many archtop guitars that I start out with a 4-inch grinder with a $5, what is this, 120 grit, 5/8 inch arbor, 4-inch diameter, and I come in and I start with that right there, a flat surface, and I take my grinder. I defined all the, and I'm not going to start talking about this. I've already covered this in extensive detail in some of the past videos, but I can actually see the guitar. I can already see that right there in the flat surface. But probably the most important thing is to make certain that you don't come into this area up here until the very end. You want to start taking off this area up here because you're going to be taking this down considerably. And we don't need to talk about that because that's a given. But you can knock out a lot of mass by getting good with a hand grinder, and you should kind of know, based on the direction of the sanding disc, how is it going to pull to the left or is it going to pull to the right or any of that jazz, and just start carving the guitar. And if you've never done it before, maybe get some cheap wood and just make the guitar and practice. Nothing wrong with that. So, but obviously I don't take it. I get pretty close. I actually get fairly close to the finished guitar because I'm standing the grinder up right here and I'm kind of cutting in like that, and then I'll start laying the grinder over and start making real deep sweep passes, sweeps, and then over here, I'm kind of, I can't remember if I had the grinder in it, I'm keeping an eye on it, and I'm certainly making certain that I'm not rounding off the edge, but you can use that by standing it up and even kind of kiss cutting. And as far as the rough work, it takes about an hour and 15 to 20 minutes to just get it rough. And then typically what I do when I do carve the body, I carve the exact body that I want, but it's about a 1/16 of an inch. The entire body, the cap, is about a 1/16 of an inch higher than the actual finished guitar. So basically what I'm doing, I'm working my way to the finish line because I know that I'm still high and flat up here, but I'm beginning to work my way down on the outside and starting to tie everything together. Okay. So nothing wrong with using the grinder to start out with, but don't try to finish the guitar with 120 grit sandpaper. Definitely, especially if it's a clear coat body. Like if you just insisted on doing a maple capped 59 burst, I would rather you take 3 days to carve that top by hand rather than trying to rush your way to the finish line and then lose that $150 book matched beautiful cap that you had on there. Okay, that ought to make perfect sense. But I've built enough of them that I'm pretty comfortable just grabbing the grinder. Oh, and speaking of the grinder, I run it on a variable control for a router control, and I turn it all the way down, and I run it probably. Um, you could run this 15,300 RPMs, but I don't. I'm probably running it about 10,000 RPMs top. Okay. So what's next? What should I talk about? At this point, you're kind of just really getting the feel for the guitar as much as you can. I still have just a little bit of ripple right here, but not enough to worry about. So I'm basically ready to start finishing the guitar again with the nitro sailors. But a couple of things I have not done yet. I haven't drilled for the three-way, and I haven't cut through that point. Uh, it's not really important yet. I could just leave it if I wanted to, but because I've got the camera rolling here, I want to show you how beneficial having the templates, or by having these templates, what you can just knock out and not even have to measure, not even have to think. So we obviously, that's our three-way location. And once this gets installed, that's going to define our potentiometer locations. That's a given. So where I'm going with this, I'm gonna do some real-time drilling. I'm gonna go ahead and drill these 4 locations right here. Hopefully with the camera running, I don't see why it would take all that much time. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not going to drill the finish hole. I'm just going to drill like a 16th inch drill bit locator hole to verify what's going on at the top in relation to this initial cut work when I was initially building the guitar. I just want to see where everything's going. Why? Because this is a compound. Everything about this is compound radius. And I think Gibson Manufacturing and probably Gretsch as well, I think they just have everything set roughly on that pitch right there where it's kind of pitched down and everything just gets drilled not straight. In other words, obviously not straight through. That would look goofy, but everything I think is drilled on a flat plane. But and I'll try not to spend too much time with this, but I actually come in and drill each one. That's roughly going to be right there, not there, not there. I actually come in and drill each one roughly in relation to where it is if it just set flat on the body. But this one, I always stand it up just a little bit more. And this one, I definitely stand it up just a little bit more, because if you drilled them perfectly on that plane right there, that you can probably see right there, that one, crap, that one would be a little bit too much, too much kick. In other words, too kicked back this direction right here. It needs to stand up a little bit more to be complementary of the other ones. So let's do just that by using the templates. All right, basically, I'm looking at the center line. See, this template has a score down the middle, and I'm just eyeballing the truss rod center. I know that when I build my guitars that truss rod can be trusted to be perfectly on center. This is incredibly important that I don't forget this as well. When I built this guitar, when I put this cap on here, I was incredibly precise about making certain that this three-piece top, we'll just say this is 4.5 in the middle or whatever the distance is. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this glue up line right here and this glue up line right here are perfectly parallel, obviously, but they're also perfectly centered. So that center glue up is perfectly on center with the body. So what does that tell you? When I come in here and drill these locations over here, or when I mark these locations over here, they should be identical off that glue up line right there, and then the glue up line back there. Okay. So let's do it. Okay, I'm looking at the center of the body where it's glued up because this is a two-piece body. And I made a bit of a mistake a little while ago because I had actually already done this and I had those pencil marks and then I started sanding on it and I just sanded them off. So this is real time. I'm just going to sorry. Again, just kind of look at the score line down the center visually, and the most important one will be, well, they're all important, but to get you started, you know that by pushing that up into that corner, that's going to give you this first look. And I've got the pencil lead probably sticking out about 1/4 of an inch, and all I'm doing is a real gentle locator. And I'm holding that perfectly flat right there, verifying my template didn't move. Okay, I'll just turn it real slow. Since it's not shiny, you should be able to see that. And then what I was talking about, just look at it visually first and ask yourself, do these two, does the, what would that be? That would be the neck volume, the bridge volume, the neck tone, the bridge tone. So is the neck volume and the neck tone, does it look like it's perfectly in line with that glue up line? And if it looks good, well then that's awesome. But now let's actually just measure it and see. Sorry, I'll try to let me get it first and then, okay, I'm pretty much spot on center. I'll come back here. And it looks like this one's a little bit high by about a 32nd of an inch. So that lets me know I'm close enough for rock and roll to start with, but I'm gonna go ahead and just mark it. Oh, I got a little bit left. Good. Good. Again, yeah, you know, you're wanting to step up as far as the drilling goes. That ought to be a given. Now let's verify what we've got. I got a little bit low on that one when I poked it. Let's see if I can show you this. Looks great. Uh, they're just about identical, but I got this one just a little bit low in that direction. So I'm just going to push it over a little bit, and even it's not perfectly in center with the pencil mark as well. So let's pull the trigger on the drill, and then we'll compare it to what's going on in the back. And I completely just realized I haven't finished talking about the templates, so I'll pick back up and we'll talk about the templates. Okay, is that in the camera? Well, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I've got to, basically what I'm doing, I'm tilting the drill over a little bit, kind of based on what I was talking about earlier. Just kind of, now these, I'll go ahead and do these because they're fairly simple. They're not nearly as angled. They're almost straight up and down. You could get away with that. You see now why it's so important that one's pitched properly. Stand this one up a little bit more. Don't follow the contour. The reason I don't just drill straight through is, as I already explained, that's one thing. But it's also because the way I build my guitars, they're incredibly thick right here, especially right there. Why? Because when I build my bodies, I don't route all the way through the lower. I leave as much wood in the guitar as possible, and then I'll come in here with a Forstner bit later on, and I'll clean this up later on. Okay, so let's look at what we've got, and I can already see there's a little bit of a, okay, as far as the initial cut goes, that's where I came through in relation to the other circle. That's where I came through in relation to that circle. And that's where I came through right there. So it looks like in this one as well. Okay. So I'm going to turn it this way now and show you. You can see where I came through. I'm consistently higher than the original. Now at this point, I've got the option to do whatever I want. If I prefer to do all the final drill work with the center, shifted down in relation to what's going on in the back, then that's my personal preference. Or, maybe because I did this on camera, I might have gotten off a little bit. So before I finish the guitar, obviously I'm going to triple check that because that's not a mistake you want to make. Okay. But in other words, don't just come in here with a, what would it be, 3/8 inch? Don't just come in with a 3/8 inch drill and put this on the drill press. And, don't just put this on the drill press with a 3/8 inch drill and try to drill straight down. It'll be really goofy because it just will. It'll be wrong. And I kind of learned this from, watching the Robert Benedetto videos, of course, but most of his guitars were all acoustic arch tops, and the guitars I was building were electric, and I was doing more of the Gretsch layout, the 3, but I was always trying to pay attention to, the subtle differences there. And I used to be a little bit, I used to be bad about carving them a little bit too curvy, and then very quickly I realized everything about the archtop guitar needs to be very subtle and very, very soft transition, except for when you're doing that pinch. There's nothing wrong with pinching that a little bit to define that belly. Okay, and then you just set the guitar back and ask yourself, hey, do I like what I see? And it looks good. It looks like a Les Paul. So let me check the time. 36 minutes. Wow, takes a long time to drill 4 holes. All right, what should I talk about? I talked about using the template for your final layout. The same thing will take place up here. You'll just have this little medallion. And see, this little medallion is exactly what you would use to make the control cavity cover on the back. So when you have this laying up here in relation to where we had it, you simply drop that in right there, and then make that mark right there, and then do the drill. And then when you're drilling this one up here, I don't like the idea of drilling straight through. I do the exact same thing. I'm going to exaggerate it, but I pitch it back in that direction right there. But I only pitch it back maybe 3 degrees, maybe 4 degrees. And the way you could tell, let's say the mark was right there. If you put a socket on there, that'll show you, your limitations. But you might, and keep in mind, as I mentioned, if you do the poker chip, you want to pay particular attention to that stuff, because if you come in here too straight up and down, the poker chip will float over here and it'll be problematic. So if it's going right there, make certain that you take that into consideration. And you see how that gives you an idea of how much compound radius curving is going on. There's a lot right there. But again, when I drilled through this one, I drilled through about like that right there. This one right here, when I drilled through for this one, I drilled through about like that. And this one, pretty much I did. Basically, I'm straight through that socket. If that socket was centered over that hole down there, I'm pretty much straight through that path. And probably the same thing right there. And probably not. I probably stood this one up a little bit more in that direction. Not much. Again, I'm talking a 32nd of an inch here. But once these knobs go on here, it's absolutely stunning. I mean, it's just beautiful when you see the real soft variation between each potentiometer. I mean, between each knob. Okay. So, and I can't show it to you because none of the guitars that I have are finished, and it just is what it is. All right, so I think I got to do quite a bit of scraping on camera, which that's probably more than I even thought I was going to do. But let me, since we're already probably 40 minutes or so, close to it, 39 minutes, let me just think about, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's talk about these carving templates. And I'll just go through this, not in a rush, because if you're here, you're really wanting to build a guitar. You're wanting to learn how to build a guitar. All right, this is A, and A is basically right on the center of the guitar, and it's probably one of the very first cuts that you'll want to start making to start defining the belly, but never just try to carve just that area right there and then carve just this area. Every bit of this needs to be flowing and carving down and you know, taking place all at once. Okay, so that's A. I'm just going to run through these. This will be B. This is the largest one, and it goes across. It basically goes straight across the location for the tailpiece anchor, and you can see. I hope you can see. I am pretty much identical to the Stuart McDonald template. I'm a little bit more right here, and probably just a little bit right there, but I basically copied the template for that one right there, and that's B. Okay, and then C. I think C is right in front of the bridge location, and this is pretty important. You can see. I hope you can see that I'm basically identical. I'm identical to the StewMac template. And what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that my guitar that I've built is virtually back here identical to Dan Erlenwine's 1959 Les Paul Burst, because that's what these templates are based on. And then we've already talked about a D enough that I'm very. This is where I started, you know, changing just a little bit, but not much. I deviated just enough to achieve the pinch that I wanted, and then I flattened out the belly just a little bit, but nonetheless, pretty darn close. Okay. And I don't really understand E. I don't understand why E has curvature. It doesn't have a flat spot showing where the neck is. It just shows the full curvature as if it didn't even have a neck on it. But you can use this side of the E template to really help guarantee that you don't screw up your area over here. Okay. I kind of cowboy it. I scooped a little bit more right here just because I wanted to, but nonetheless, well, probably not. I'm pretty darn close. When I push it up a little bit further, oh, I'm sorry. On this template right here, it will show you exactly where E needs to be, and it will show you exactly where D is, and C is, and then B. Okay, so B is just behind the anchor location, and obviously A is on the center line. C is definitely pretty much exactly where I said. It's right behind the pickup. D is in the middle, and as we already covered, E is right there. So on that note, use the templates, and again, and I don't mean to be repetitive, but if you're sitting there looking at that right there, these are your best friend, because it's very unlikely that that you'd be able to pull this right here off on your first guitar. That's just what it is. Even if you're a really good woodworker, you're going to have a tendency to get a little bit too bubbly. That's probably what's going to happen first, because the first archtop guitar I ever did, that's exactly what this guy told me. He's like, oh, it's kind of bubbly. And I was like, oh, shit, man, that's not what I wanted to hear. You know. But it was my first archtop guitar, and that was before I ever had the Robert Benedetto video series and all that stuff. And I certainly didn't have these. So, okay, so 65 bucks for that set right there. I think the template set here, along with the internal, you know, the neck tenon and that location there, the channel, that's critical. And then see, this is the location that I was talking about on the back there, where typically they would just route all the way through, but I don't. I like to leave some of my lower in place, so I've got a mass of wood. But I think these templates ended up being close to $350 to $400 for the entire set, including the neck, and the neck viewed from the front, and the neck viewed from the side. So, and that was for a '59 Les Paul replica, which is spot on to the authentic guitar. Okay, so long video probably, but some detailed information that if you read between the lines, just buy the templates and you should be fairly safe. One thing I did not mention that, because I've done this video probably 3 or 4 times, I kept getting way too long-winded and I erased the video. But before I end the video, you don't want to do any of this true final carve work out here until very early in the build. You've already defined this point right here. Is that in the camera? Yeah. That location, that point right there is bar none the most important location that you define very, very early in the build. Even when it's has not been carved at all on the top. All this is installed and you've pitched this. I don't like to pitch more than 4 degrees. The templates, the StewMac templates, they say pitch 4.6 degrees. That's way too much. Because you'll just trust me on that. I wouldn't pitch over 4 degrees, and what that will yield is a beautiful, nice little comfortable height in your bridge. You don't want this to be 7/8 of an inch like a big jazz guitar. A big bodied jazz guitar, your bridge is only about a 15/16 of an inch high from the top of the body, the top of the top to the highest point on the string. That's a 17-inch jazz guitar. 7/8 to 15/16. We want this to be around 5/8 of an inch minimum, maybe a little bit more, but and you can achieve that with a 4-degree pitch. So once you have that 4-degree pitch and you've been really cautious about the top thicknesses, the lower thicknesses, and all that jazz, then all of this, once you have these points right here, everything in the guitar is defined after that, because that point obviously is related to that plane right there, which is defined by the tenon. It's a given. It's just common sense, and then you can come off and be as bubbly as you want, but don't. If you really keep yourself on point and make really gentle transitions, you'll end up with a beautiful guitar. And you just will, because once you've defined that point right there, well, then every bit of that transfers over and defines that point right there. And once you define that point, then how deep you route into the body will determine how thick your binding is after it's all said and done. And I like kind of a tall binding. It's well over 1/4 of an inch. Mine's closer to it's not 5/16 of an inch. It's a little bit under 5/16 of an inch, but I have no idea what that number is, and it doesn't matter. But that's not 1/4 of an inch. Let me just measure it, because to me, this is a beautiful thickness right here. It might be too much for some of you guys. And I'll have to read it off in metric. It's 8 millimeter. Okay, it'll be oh wow, I'm drawing a blank. It's really late. It's about halfway in between 1/4 and 5/16 of an inch, whatever that is. I don't want to guess at it because I may give you the wrong number. It's over 1/4 but under 5/16 of an inch. Okay, and it's about right in the middle. So whatever that imperial number is. No wonder No wonder the guys in the UK just or in Europe just go metric. Sometimes it's so much easier. And speaking of that, when I lay out my fretboards, even though I do a lot in imperial, I never lay out my fretboard scales in imperial. I always just go metric. So much easier. Because to me, it's so much easier to find a half of 43 millimeter or 44 millimeter than a half of 1 in 23/32. That's just mind numbing. Okay, so I appreciate you guys dropping in. Hope it wasn't too long winded, but there's a ton of information there, and I'm not just going to end the video without saying I may have already clarified it, but I had to define the guitar that I truly wanted once it's finished, because I might be getting ready to shoot this thing a really radical custom color. And once I've got that gun loaded with whatever pigments and tints and stains and all that jazz, I want to be out of guitar building mode. I want to be in finish mode. And the last thing I want to have to do is clean up that gun and go back to cleaning up, straightening up the body that I should have already uh, had you know cut properly. I'm tired. It's been a hell of a long day. So just make sure that you build the guitar first, have it finished. Nothing wrong with going ahead and having the fretboard on here and this is finished and stringing the thing up and playing it. This guitar, all of my guitars, a lot of times I'll string them up and play them and they'll be raw. They won't have any finish on them at all. And then I'll come in and I'll start changing the neck profile there's been a lot of times where I've taken a 1/16 of an inch off the entire neck and it's strung up and in tune. And then I'll play it and feel like, yeah, is that where I want? Or I'll flip it over and I'll start carving again. And it's a full blown built guitar in tune. And that's a great way to truly define the guitar you want. Okay. So, and then once you get the guitar built, then you can strip it down. And you know for a fact that once you spend weeks, I mean weeks, spraying all your nitro and doing all that beautiful work, you know that once you string it up, you already know exactly what it's going to feel like or play like and stuff like that. The last thing you want to be doing is making changes and having to touch up a custom paint or even just black or a gold top. We don't want to have to fool that because we may not have enough material. We may be stretching what we've got in the shop. Okay. All right. I'm not even going to check the time, but I know it's probably a long video. I appreciate you guys dropping in. I'll look at the table one more time. We talked about templates. We talked about profiles. We talked about cowboy carpentry and carving. We talked about flat planes, just, picking up a nice flat board. Thicknesses, cheater thicknesses. We covered a lot of ground in this video, and I can't think of anything else I need to talk about other than I will hit very, very quickly. On this guitar, I'm probably going to be installing a B7 Bigsby, but I'm not going to be cutting for the anchors. I'm not there yet, but typically you'll have the vibramate, but I don't really care for that on a Les Paul. I like it to be more along the lines of like a vintage Les Paul, where they would have just put the Bigsby right on the body. And the rarest and most valuable early 50s guitars were the ones that were ordered custom without the anchors and the Bigsby already installed. And so I say that to say this: they're very rare, but they'll be cut for the bridge, but they won't be cut back here, and you'll see the footprint and the fading of where it had a Bigsby on it. And if you're lucky, the Bigsby's still on there, and that's a $500,000 guitar, if not more. So I probably will build this one this way, where I will not be cutting for the anchors. And so just the cool thing about building your own guitar, you can change your mind, which I did. I filled that in with epoxy, and I changed my mind. So appreciate you guys dropping in. I will do a little bit of a flyby. Quarter Sun, Limba, Korina. The tap tones are off the charts. I mean, it just is unbelievably sounding guitar. Okay. Appreciate you guys dropping in, and I'll just stop talking. See you in the next video. Thanks, guys.